Have you looked around lately and noticed that there are more and more people showing up authentically in the world? These people are speaking their truths and helping others tune into their own inner voice and how to create a life they absolutely love. My guest today is one of those souls. Her name is Krystal Jakosky. She's a teacher and writer based in Colorado, helping people own their shit and take ownership of their own lives. Krystal knows what it means to be a survivor. In her popular My Five Fundamental Truths blog post, she opens up about some of the challenges she has overcome, from mental, verbal, and emotional abuse to rape and generational religious bonds. Krystal has worked to heal the wounds of the past through time, patience, self ownership, and humility. Krystal teaches online and in person classes, meets with clients in individual sessions, and hosts Breathe In, Breathe Out, a weekly mindfulness and meditation podcast. As a public speaker, Krystal gives her audience tangible tips, tactics, and tools to become their own magic pill. Through personal stories and hard truths, Krystal gives her listeners a healthy push in the right direction and motivates them to step into a more authentic, fulfilling life. Let's join the conversation now. Welcome, Krystal. I'm so excited you're here today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Teresa. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I think it's time to get real. And I love your owning your shit. So let's get real because you know what? It's like that time of life. I mean, like right now we're in an auspicious period. There's lots going on. And yeah, it's like get real or get off the pot is what I like to say.
Yeah, I absolutely same thing. Let's own it. Let's figure it out and let's move
Yep.
forward. Let's move on. Yeah.
Without a doubt. And I mean, as we know too, like we're the only ones that can do for ourselves and no one can do it for us. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about your life and how you came to your spiritual journey and moving into sharing your beautiful, juicy lifestyle and what you do out in the world with people. So can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I'll condense a long story. I was raised in a family that was deeply religious with a capital R, very organized religion, and it informed every decision that we made. And so growing up, I lived by those rules and I got married by those rules and followed what was expected of me. And um, got married, but I think I was too young because I was only 18. And I followed. I was the dutiful wife and the mother, and I was the owner of the home, and I helped. I had a job and supported in so many different ways. And not very long into the marriage, I was married for 14 years. And during one particular rough moment, I remember I was really upset. I was sobbing, and I heard this voice say, "It's okay. You're not alone. This is temporary. We're with you." And it blew me away in that moment because I had always thought of one spirit, of one holy comforter that would take care of us. I had never thought that a larger contingency of angels would be there watching over me. And I was a little freaked out. Am I hearing voices? I learned how to listen to that voice immediately, and it never steered me wrong. It always told me, no, this is the path that you need to go. So that was the beginning of my separation kind of from the religion and the move into spirituality. And through listening to them and understanding, take this path and not that path. And if you take this path, things will be easier. Trusting in that higher guidance, that divine being, made it so that I started also recognizing where I was screwing up, where I was contributing to things in my life, and where I needed to own it and shift it to something different and to improve where I was at. So it meant I had to own the fact that I was really young and I was following somebody else's rules, getting into this marriage, and that I had been a submissive person. But my true nature, my authentic being, was vivacious and full of life and excited to just be out there and experience every little thing that I could possibly experience. So these fantastic spirit guides helped nurture me through that. And I found theater and I became more of a light and more of a self-owning. I have value, I have purpose as a human being, and more than just as a wife and a mother, but just I get to be more. And whatever that more is exciting and wonderful. And I learned a lot of things. I had to own a lot of things. I had to recognize that blaming other people really was not getting me those benefits or those answers or results that I was hoping for. Blaming you and hoping that I would, it just doesn't work. And yet, understanding myself and seeing where I could make different choices, or going back and healing those childhood traumas, made me such a better person. And I was way more compassionate to everyone. Recognizing that and owning my shit is how I came to understanding. And people would be attracted to me and say, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I need to learn something from you. And so that's where I started just teaching people what I had learned. And it's just grown from there. So that's brought me to here, where I get to continue sharing that.
That is so exciting. And so that resonance of your beautiful essence, which to me, I like to say is enthusiasm, because that's my big
Yeah.
thing is, full of enthusiasm. And that's our
Yeah.
soul essence. But I mean, we can obviously, there's all kinds of names for it. But
Yeah.
what a beautiful story of your team showing up like that and just giving you those insights and you trusting that.
Yeah.
I think that's a big key is a lot of people don't trust that inner voice and they get scared and they fear it
Mhm.
and that's a lot of the religion, some of the religion things, also other concepts and beliefs we have out in the world that you're crazy if you listen to things. So that was really brave of you at that young age to trust what you were really picking up from your guides and your higher self.
Yeah. The thing is that it's quieter, and it's one seemingly voice, however you see it or feel it. It might be literally an emotion or a feeling, and you might hear it, you might see it. However you receive that, it's kind of quiet at first compared to the external world that is coming in. And it usually takes a huge shift in life to make you start listening. And once you start listening, you still have that choice. Do I want to keep listening to it, or do I want to keep listening to this other cacophony of voices that has been informing all of your decisions up to this point? So you have the ability, and yet it's so quiet. And we all just need to keep exercising that muscle, if you will, and tuning in. Hey, because it'll never tell you something negative, and it's never going to steer you wrong. It has your best interests, and they love you. They are here to fully support you. So listening to that takes practice. And the more practice you get at it, the louder they are, and the more often you tune in. And then you just know that you're on the right path, and you are so much more confident and solid and authentic in yourself and your relationships with others. And it's so just beautiful to watch somebody start to come into that experience and that new knowledge.
Mhm. I love the way you say it at that, it's that well, it's hunches, insights, and impressions is what I call it. And
Yeah.
they can be so subtle. Like this morning, I was working with my guides and my husband and I cleanse every morning. So we were cleansing together and setting the energy for the day. And I looked up and, oh, well, I do tarot in the morning and I do my cards and stuff. So spirit was really giving me the insights of, really take notice of when we're going to give you some impressions today or some sights or whatever. And we were doing our cleansing. I look up and there's this butterfly on the window and one of its wings was, kid you not, Krystal, like gold. I mean, I'm
Oh,
filled with
wow.
chills. I say that and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's that. It's like those impressions and just like, or insights, hunches, but they are very subtle. And it's just being aware that, okay, I got spirits got my back. I got the message. So
Yeah, I love the way you say that: impressions, insights, and hunches, because it does. It comes in all of those different forms, and you never know. Like when you see the same animal over and over again and whatnot, it's, yeah, it's really cool. So I love that.
and so talk to me a little bit about how you help others tune into their own inner voice. I'd love you to share some of that because everyone has different ways they do it.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I always tell people when they come to me and they say, how do I stop listening to it? Is I tell them to ask themselves if it's their own voice or a different voice. Because our own voice, like I said earlier, is going to be positive, and the other voices are not going to be. And it's creating a super highway to know and listen to that positive stuff. We have to shift the mantra and just the old beliefs. We have to shift what's already there into, which isn't necessarily ours. It's been gifted to us through society and the people that we grew up with and the people that taught us, whether it was kids at school or your parents or religious leaders. So, sorry, hold on. I just lost track of where I was at. um, Shifting the stories we tell ourselves is, I think, one of the biggest first steps, because telling ourselves something different and allowing ourselves to believe that it's okay to listen to something different, something kinder, something gentler and more nourishing. Because we often have this, I'm not good enough, or I'm not supposed to receive that, or I can't have this, or I can't have that. Well, why can't you? Whose voice is telling you that you can't have that? Because your higher self, or the powers that be, the spirit itself, is going to say, yes, yes, and give me more, help me out.
Or they're going to veer you off on a different path if it's not maybe the way that, that the most supportive way for you.
Yeah.
I believe that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through those hard times, that's where you check in. I mean, good times too. Absolutely. 100%. I check in and I say, thank you, because without you, I wouldn't be here. And yet those really hard times when we're venting to other people and looking for their guidance, they don't have your experience. They don't know what you're going through, and they cannot ever fully know what you're going through, because you were born and raised by different people than they were. You lived in a different place, in a different home. So checking into the spirit that's there is actually, they know what you've been through. They've been with you the whole time. And come rain or shine, they're still there and can just nudge you beautifully.
Yeah, I like what I'm going to go back a little bit to earlier when you mentioned how some people, they have to come into like a conflict or a cancer or an illness or, a major accident of some type where it like jolts them. And then they come into this ability to tune in or listen, or because there's really no other options. I mean, it's almost like spirit gives them this like, look, this is, like a hitting the brick wall, right? So it's like, and that's unfortunate that, these beautiful spiritual guides are with us our whole life. We contract to come in with them. And, they do give us, those hunches, insights, and impressions. But sometimes, a lot of times, it's having to get this big place in people's lives where it's like, oh man, now they have this recognition of something out inside of them versus the outside that's really affected them.
Yeah. My husband and I talk about it as like a Ferris wheel. Okay, we're going to do one more go around. Are you going to get off the Ferris wheel now and start no, okay, let's do that again. All right, now you're going to hit a bottom again. Are you ready to come out? And at some point we say, I'm kind of done with this ride. I've seen how it goes, so I'm going to get off and start shifting into something different. And yet choosing to get off in and of itself is the beginning of self-ownership. It's the beginning of acknowledging that I want something better. And I deserve something better. So I'm going to get off the Ferris wheel.
Definitely. And I think these days too, that there are so many people who look outside of themselves, and outside of ourselves is not supporting what we need and that for the inside of ourselves. So it's that recognition too, that, okay, look, we've gone down this path, especially the last couple of years, where that is clearly not working for me and that's not working for me. So what do I have left? What you have left is inside of you is this beautiful inner voice. And like you said, spiritual guidance that can assist you every moment of your life versus the outside forces, which are not working for us to our benefit, really, from what I can see. Maybe some people, it's okay for them, but the listeners of this podcast, I can tell you, we understand it's not working for us. So.
No, not at all. I tell people that your relationship with others is literally a mirror of the relationship that you have with yourself. So if you are at conflict with somebody else, okay, let's look inside. Where are you at conflict with yourself? What is really actually going on? And how do you need to deal with that so that you can move forward? Everything looks in, everything reflects what's inside. Look at that mirror and say, do I really like what I see? Or how can I improve it? How can I make it a little bit better? And it's all that internal. Yeah, we all have it.
without a
Every
doubt.
single one of us has it. In fact, every healer that
Mhm.
you know still has it, even though
Mhm.
they are working towards helping you and helping you shift.
Mhm.
We all still have stuff that we are working through because it's an onion. You are constant, you have 7 layers of skin plus everything else that's
Mhm.
there to get to the inside. There's so many layers. So every one of us still has layers that we can get through so that we can understand better how we react in our relationships and why we react in our relationships and how can we communicate and shift the narrative that's been going on.
Mhm. Yeah, I always like to say that for myself, until my last breath, I'm working on something. It's
Mhm.
what I'm here to do. And in
Yeah.
looking at that mirror aspect of it, if you look at what's been going on the last 2.5 years in the whole world, that is a big indication of a lot of people have some conflict going on inside, right, Krystal? That's an
Yeah.
understatement, I think.
It's, I think, well, I mean, it's an understatement, and yet it's so very much the truth. My thing, what I tell people, one of my taglines is literally, we need to own our shit. And the thing about that tagline is everybody will say, oh, yeah, everybody else needs to own their shit. But they're not recognizing that they themselves
The
have
mirror.
that. And it's funny because it's the ones who are so emphatically insistent on everyone else are the ones who could really use the most help in that aspect of things. I know it's off putting. I know that some people really don't like the phrase. And yet you probably don't like it because you have some to deal with in the first place. We all, the world is so, I pray for all of us to heal. I pray that there are enough of us seeking enlightenment and seeking a new way of being that we can create that shift to just improve the state all over the place, because it is so sad and there's so many people suffering and there's just so much conflict that, it breaks your heart to just spend time recognizing what's out there, the pain and the challenges and the discord.
Completely agree with you. And I think too, that's a part of my thing, is like, I'm so sensitive that I pick up on the collective and the
Mhm.
energies. And so each day it's like, okay, what is today like? Oh crap. Or, oh, okay, I feel better today. So it is, but I do also believe that there's that balance,
Mhm.
coming back into neutrality. But we are on this planet to learn and grow. And that is
Mhm.
part of it, is the dark and the light, the shadow, the not shadow, whatever, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and if you look back in history, there's always been something going on.
Yeah. Always, always. And yet coming into, so we were talking about how there's so much conflict in all the humans that are on this. If you stop and you give yourself some compassion and you give yourself some understanding, recognizing that these things happened to you and you want to heal from that, you're going to love yourself, be kinder to yourself, but that also radiates easily out to every other person around you, which then radiates out to other people. One person shifting, one person changing and owning ripples. It's those ripples in a pond that completely change and transform so many other things, just starting with one.
100% agree with you again, Krystal. Yeah. And I do believe that I mean, I don't believe in death. So I believe that, whatever we are, we're just in the process, right? But
Yeah.
I do believe that it's gonna, I mean, we're coming into, obviously, the age of Aquarius, a whole new shift. That's why there are so many souls on the planet right now, because we're like, we want to get in here and be a part of this. So
Yeah.
that's another thing too, is that, there's no coincidence that, how many is it,
Mm-mm.
8 billion, or I don't know how many people are on the planet right now, like the most
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
because we're all like, yeah, this is it. We're here and let's get this thing going.
Right. Let's dance a little dance. Let's get some joy and yeah, move. Oh, yeah.
And let's own our shit, right? Because there's a lot going on. And not only this lifetime too, but back previous lifetimes, we have just layers upon layers of
Yeah.
our own soul stuff, of generational stuff, of things that, I mean, it's all just peeling away right now. And I think that's a part
Yeah.
of the intensity also, is that we are just gangbusters releasing stuff right now.
Yeah. That generational thing. some people really don't believe in it. And yet I had a very personal experience where I was transposing some of my grandmother's journals. And I used to get really dizzy at the top of a staircase, like so dizzy, I would grab onto a railing to stop myself from falling. And I would have to take a second to compose myself before I could walk down the stairs. As I transposed my grandmother's journals, I found that she had fallen down the stairs when she was pregnant. So I sat down in meditation with my grandma and I checked in and I was like, hey, I'd really rather not have this. Let's have a chit chat. I haven't had a dizzy spell at the top of the stairs since I recognized that it wasn't from me. It was from ancestral issues. And now I healed that. It's amazing when you stop and recognize, when you ask that question of, is this mine or is it someone else's? How you can really peel those layers back. You can really shed a whole bunch of that. "Ugh, I don't need to carry that anymore. It's not mine. That was inherited. But do I really have to keep it? Do I need to put that on the shelf and carry it through life with me? Or as an inheritance, can I say, thank you? No, thank you. Move on. Yeah.
And yeah, and as sensitive souls and energetic beings, whatever you want to say about all of us, that discernment of what's me and what's not me is crucial. I mean, because so many people have no idea that the aches, the pains, in the midst of, even like all the voices we hear every day, a lot of that is not us. And it pops in at different times. But again, even the like you said, with, the having vertigo or, almost falling, it's like, that wasn't you. That was something that, grandma experienced and the energy was still around you. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, that part of our spiritual aspect of our being is so crucial with understanding. And it's also hard for people to understand that unless you've had the kind of experience like you. And I have a lot too with, understanding that that's not me. What the hell is that coming at me right now? That's not me.
Yeah. It's like, can we just turn that radio off? let's turn the knob, turn the button, shut it off so that we're not listening to all that, because we don't need all of that. I often bubble up. I'm like, this is my little shell. I'm going to bubble up and put a couple colors on it and let the world be out there and only good stuff come in, because there's just so much that sensitive beings, intuitive beings can feel and take on. And it can really be traumatic and challenging to live a normal life when you've got so many other people coming in and pushing you in this direction or pushing you in that direction, and knowing that it's not yours and you can stop carrying it's a huge gift. I mean, it's really just, it's an amazing transformative gift to be able to drop it.
Without a doubt. And as you mentioned that with, the being sensitive again, it's also not only the energy of, others that may have passed or, other beings or whatever, but also like all the 5G stuff and the other energy that, that comes in on us too. Like it's bombardment, complete bombardment of our energy system. And a lot of people don't understand that either. So it's that acknowledgement and that understanding of how sensitive we are as beings and how to work with that energy. So do you have a practice that you use to keep yourself beside your bubble? Is there something else to keep cleanse? Or bubble's good, Krystal, don't get me wrong, but just wondered, whatever you can do, I say, go for it.
Right. Whatever works for you. It's
Heck
fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm constantly might be a big word, but I believe meditation it takes many different forms, many different ways of doing it, because you can do it you're walking or riding a bike or chopping vegetables or working in the wood shop. Meditation is whatever helps you tune out the world and tune into yourself. And I find myself doing those kinds of things more and more because I want to let the world go. I want to release all of that so that I can come back into my center. And that's when I'm better able to hear those beautiful guides. It's when I'm better able to be inspired on how to help somebody, or how, like, what I need to write as far as my musings and journalings and whatnot. So mine is literally, and I say meditation, I'm not sitting in lotus pose. I am not sitting in lotus pose. What I am doing is putting in and doing is putting an intention behind my actions and saying, for right now, I want to let everything go while I'm doing this activity. So there's an intention and a purpose behind why I'm taking some methodical quiet time. So I think that's my biggest thing, is just that. And it's not stopping. It's not stopping. It's literally, I might go for a walk and tune out so that I can tune in.
I love that, Krystal, because so many people, when they think of spirituality or meditation, it's like, yeah, the lotus and you got to sit there for hours. Hell's no. Like sometimes being in the shower, or even just taking a rest. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to go into that state and access it for it. And I think that's the exciting part, because each person can make it their own. It's that intention, like you mentioned. And, and just for myself lately, it's just been about being present.
Yeah.
Like what I'm doing, I'm right here. I'm talking to you. I'm in this podcast. I'm not focused on, oh my God, the phone and I got to make dinner and la, 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 la. No, I'm being present. And that to me is one of my meditative states, because then I can access guidance and all kinds of things can just kind of flow versus, really not having that, mindfulness meditation and everything I do. So I'm totally with you. I'm down on that, Krystal.
We're two peas in a pod. Yeah. Amen. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that's a part of it. Like, even like religion, like people get so set in rules and set in ways that, if I'm not meditating 35 to an hour every day, I'm not spiritual. Please make it your own.
Stop making rules, stop making excuses, stop avoiding it. It is, I tell people, it's literally self-care. Like if you don't take care of yourself, then there's nothing left you can't do anymore. And meditation in and of itself gives you that break. Meditation, and like we're saying, meditation, mindfulness, being present in the moment, whatever you're doing that has that intention and that purpose behind it, to give yourself a little bit more and fill your cup a little bit more so that you can deal with the external world and everything that's coming at you. Do it.
Yeah.
Take that moment and put yourself higher on that priority list, because that's how we're going to get through this. That's how we're going to survive. Loving ourselves, honoring ourselves and our needs. And then it, like I said, spreads to everyone else. It just opens up magnitudes of shifting and change and beauty.
Definitely. And what comes to me too is and being that change, because the image I had as you were talking about that is when I'm out and about, I see so many young people on their phones, texting or walking, and they run into you. They're so disconnected. I mean, like this is the upcoming generation. You're like, hello, how are they going to connect? And of course it's all their journey. And a lot of that's none of my business, but just noticing that as adults and or whoever's listening, because I do have some young people that listen to this podcast also, that, being mindful and walking and being aware, and it can make such a difference in their own, who they are as a soul and how they get places and their direction and working with their guidance, and versus being on the phone all the time and just disconnecting.
Yeah. And that's recently, I came across a post and it literally said, are you relaxing or are you dissociating? And when you're on your phone and you're doing that stuff, are you relaxing and enjoying what's going on, or are you disconnecting from everything else?
Well, it's funny because sometimes when we're watching TV at night to relax, which is another meditative way, sometimes if I'm watching something I like, my husband will be scrolling on his phone and I'm like, I just kind of look over and I'm like, damn, because he's going fast. I'm like, how are you even like connecting with anything? Because it's so weird. I mean, we're living into such a different, because you're obviously perhaps my age where, we didn't have these phones. We were younger, we didn't have computers. I mean, not to say it's, and I love it all. Don't get me wrong. Because if we didn't have this stuff, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. I wouldn't be connecting people around the world. It's a beautiful thing. Technology is amazing, but it's very disconnecting in certain ways.
Yeah. I have to apologize. I have a tickle in my throat. And
that's okay. I totally get it. I had laryngitis this week, and girl, I was like, I'm going to get through these podcasts, and I have been fine, but I have still a little hoarseness in my, I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. So I get the tickle in a big way.
Yeah. So I apologize to
That's
all your
totally
listeners.
okay. Hey, being human. Hello.
Hello. Love me.
Hello. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the things you offer, because you have some beautiful offers. One is your Intro to You course. I'd love for you to share with the listeners about that.
This course was absolutely inspired, and when I had the first idea, it flowed out so quickly that I was really kind of blown away with the intensity. And the Intro to You course is literally a way people can tune into their higher self, but it also introduces you to your other bodies. You have your spiritual body, which is the overriding, let me take the information in. And it also introduces you to your mental body, your physical body that you're living in, and your emotional body, which many of us have been so disconnected to. So it takes you through these guided meditations and these journalings to help you connect to those, but not only connecting to those, recognizing what kind of self-care each one of them needs to help keep them in alignment. And when one of them's out of alignment, what do you do to help adjust it? Because they all need something different. So the Intro to You course was literally built to help people connect back into their true being and where they're at and what they need and how they can meet those needs, because we're not telepathic yet. Nobody can meet your needs if you don't know what they are. If you don't know, they don't know. It doesn't work that way. So it helps you get more in tune with yourself, your higher power, and recognizing how you can make your existence, your life, and your connections so much better. And so that's one of I love it. It's fantastic and beautiful. And we'll give all your viewers a 10% off, or your listeners a 10% off thing, because I really feel like it needs to be out there. And the more people that connect and tune in, the more just the more calm kindness that we will have, and the better we will be able to spread that and give that gift and that compassion.
Definitely
So
agree with
important.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also have a couple other things. You're connecting with your sacred pulse.
Oh my gosh.
I'd love you to share a little about that.
Every one of us is subjected to pulses and rhythms around us. So there's the earth, and there are all the seasons that are there. We have hormonal pulses, which, whether you're cis women or cis men or regular, it does not matter who you are. You have these hormonal changes and shifts within us. And we also have these cycles and pulses through work, through family life, kids going to school and being out for summer, sleep and wake cycles. The thing is, we are often going through them and completely unaware of how we're being affected by them. And if we would stop, check in, understand, number one, what it is, and number two, where we're at in that rhythm and cycle. It's back to that Ferris wheel. It's going up and around, right? And you're going to have down times, and then you're going to have up times that are absolutely fabulous. If we tune into that pulse, if we tune into that rhythm, then we know when the down is going to come, and we can prepare for that. We know when our periods of spinning our wheels and not really being very productive are going to be present, and we'll be able to prepare for that. We're going to understand when our periods of massive activity are going to be there. We're going to know when we should ask for a raise at work because our confidence is high and we're feeling fabulous, instead of the low where you don't like your job, you're complaining about your boss, you're annoyed with this coworker or that coworker. So Sacred Pulse is all about tuning into that rhythm and tuning into where you're at, so that you can then smooth out the ups and downs, prepare for the downs, prepare for the ups, and life is a lot easier because you're ready for that shift from one being to another. And it's transformative. It's fantastic. It helps you understand that your partner, it's not that they're rejecting you right now. They're just in part of their pulse where they need a little more me time and a little less snuggling. You know, it understanding mine and understanding my husband's. Mine is a 35-day cycle, and my husband's is a 3-month cycle. And understanding that means that when we both come to that down part of the Ferris wheel, we can prepare and say, oh, so this is the week where I want to go into a hole. And this is the week where you want like friends and people around, and you don't want any work, and we don't really communicate really well. So maybe understanding that, we can give each other compassion and say, all right, this too shall pass. We'll be able to move forward. So Sacred Pulse is, it's so simple, and yet it's so big when you recognize how much of your life is affected by these rhythms and cycles and pulses that are around you. And it's huge and simple at the same time.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. It sounds like, because I mean, when you say that, I think about like the moon cycles and, the cycle, which of course affects the cycles of the tides. And like you said, our cycles inside of us, with our hormones. And so, wow, but it sounds like you take it to a whole different, you take it even further, which is really pretty pronounced. It's amazing. It's really cool.
Yeah. I love teaching it because I love watching that light go off in someone's head and say, oh, that's what's been going on. So that's why I have a breakout, because like, I didn't realize it. Or that's why one day my hair is fantastic and the next day my hair sucks. Or when people start connecting those dots and understanding, that's why I want salads for one week, but I want chicken the next week and I want beef the next week. It's because, so understanding those, and then like your shopping changes and your exercise changes, and the meditations and the self-care that you do change, and seeing the cycles and the rhythms of the people around you and the way that you can nurture each other. And it's just like, you don't realize how much of your life, like your sex life, improves, because now you know when you're going to be excited and when you're like not all that excited, but we could probably shift this way or that way. Like it's mind boggling how much we are affected, and yet how much we are totally oblivious to the idea. We used to live with seasons. We used to live by the earth. We used to eat what was in season, that the bounty that Mother Earth was giving us. Like, we used to live with the moon, and we've gotten so far away from that many people think that sacred pulses and rhythms and whatnot are a bunch of woo-woo stuff, and they don't want to talk about it because that doesn't exist. It very much does. Just take a step back and recognize it, because whether it's within you or your work cycle or your family cycle, it's there. It is absolutely there. We are all ebbing and flowing, and understanding how to work with that is a gift we could all stand to use.
It sounds like it. And that's part of, because what I like to say is making it practical. So there's all these spiritual, techniques, tools, et cetera, but making it practical is really important, because then it's real. And because it is real, people. I mean, right, Krystal? I mean, like, the spiritual part of us is real. We all do have this guidance. We've got, spiritual team around us. It's all real. It's just, accessing it and understanding, like you said, about the sacred pulse. And so that's really neat.
Being ready to tap into it. It's again that cycle. Are you ready to get on off now? Are you ready to check in now? Are you ready to understand it now, so that things are smoother? One of my dear friends, she said, I used to think I was manic depressive. She hadn't gone in, she hadn't been diagnosed, she hadn't anything, but then she learned Sacred Pulse, and she said, it was literally just, I needed to understand that. And then I was reacting to my husband, and I was reacting to his, which was increasing mine, which just increased the whole up and down upheaval that I was going through in this whole rhythm cycle, and understanding it shifted it again. So when people are ready, they tune in, and it's
amazing.
Yeah.
So once you learn it, can you then, like, if I learned it for myself, would I then be able to understand my husband, or does he have to do it too? Or how does that work?
No, I actually have people who do it for themselves, because they want to know. And after they've been doing it and they really have a rhythm for themselves, then they start looking at their kids, or they start looking at their partner, and they start just kind of gently paying attention, because even having a roundabout idea is going to give you such an illuminating insight into how your partnership works. So no, a lot of people do it for themselves, and then later they think, I'm going to apply this to other things. Mine, I had been doing it for a long time. And then finally I thought, I'm going to check it in on my husband and see. But since his is a 3-month cycle, it's a lot longer to understand. I happen to be a menstruating human. So it was really easy for me to figure out my cycle. And yet my husband's was a much longer cycle. So figuring out that it was a 3-month cycle actually took, 9 months to figure out, because it was so much longer than mine. But I also know men who have found that they have a 1-month cycle and their partner does too.
Wow.
So,
Interesting.
so we're all unique. We're all different. I had one guy come in and he said, I have a 24-hour cycle. And I said, okay, let's talk about that. And it was fantastic. And it was so enlightening, because he was like, because we all have a governing one, right? We have the governing one that really affects everything. But then we also have these little minute ones, like our daily cycle. You get up and you go to work, you get up and you have breakfast or coffee, and you go to work and you do this and that and the other, and then you go and sleep again. That in and of itself is this cycle that we're living and affects our lives, our daily lives. If you don't get enough sleep, it's going to affect the rest of the cycle.
Right.
But we all have this governing one that dramatically affects everything else. So for me as a menstruating human and my hormonal cycle, that was mine. My husband has a different one. So whatever it is that really feeds into your governing, you're subjected to other ones. And yet the one that really overwhelms everything is the one that you really need to tune into. You can tune into the other ones as well. And that can go down like deep rabbit hole. Oh my gosh. It's like, wow.
I'm so fascinated by this, Krystal. I'm gonna have to look into this more, because I am super, like I get this. I want to learn more about this. So
yeah,
definitely.
it's just fantastic. It's so beautiful, and it's a gift. I love it. I love it.
I can
I love
feel it.
knowing
Like when I was
mine.
checking everything out for today's session, I'm like, sacred pulse. And I mean, I don't know how many people that, you do a podcast, they ask you about that, but I was like, I need to find out about that, because that felt important.
Yeah, no, it is. And your audience is largely female. So they're going to recognize that. And I don't care if you are in menopause or if you're on birth control or whatnot, every single human has this cycle. Does not matter gender or non-gender conforming. Everyone has this, but understanding that changes everything. It makes you feel like, instead of you're crazy, that makes a lot of
pulse.
sense.
It's my sacred pulse.
It's just my pulse. I see that my little crone is with me, and I'm going to sit down in the woods for a couple of days, because that's where I need to be.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah. I'm checking that out. Definitely. I want to know more about that. So, and you also have a beautiful podcast, Breathe In, Breathe Out, a weekly mindfulness and meditation podcast that I will definitely have in the show notes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's one of my favorite things to do on this whole planet. It started out with guided meditations and just talking about mindfulness ideas and thoughts that were coming up and inspirations that we had. And we just recently started pulling additional guests on, and to talk about different ways that you can take care of yourself and different ways that you can tune in, because my methods are not necessarily it for everyone. They want to hear from other people and be inspired by other people's experiences. And maybe somebody is totally into tarot, which I had a lady on and she did a tarot reading. It was fantastic. I loved it. And other people might be into the meditation or whatnot. So it's one of my favorite parts, because I get to connect with not only my listeners, but that person like you and I right now. We really get to just sit like we're in each other's living room and talk like old friends, and really dive into some points that are close to our hearts, close to our souls, and how can we inspire other people. So yeah, it's fantastically fun.
I feel you, Krystal. I love it too.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm on board. I'm on board with that. If podcasting is amazing. Definitely. Yeah.
I agree.
Well, Krystal, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing with my listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't believe that this time has flown by, and it was so easy breezy to chat with you. So thank you for having me on, and thank you for letting me share.
Oh, a pleasure. And I'll have all of the 10% off for the Intro to You course in the show notes, and all the links to your beautiful podcasts and everything that we talked about. So my listeners can go into the show notes and get all that information from you.
Thank you so much, Teresa.